So since today is Pride weekend, I think it's a good time to bust this video back out. Well, the white supremacists, in their efforts to make blacks look bad in every avenue of life, have tried to make the black man the face of homophobia or anti-gay shit. But the reality is, the biggest threat and the longest running damaging actor to the gay community has been the white supremacist closeted homosexual man. In short, gay white men are the biggest threat to gay white men. See, they like to talk about clowns like Eddie Long, who was a pastor who was anti-gay, but then you have Ted Haggard, who kept banging dudes left and right. He was anti-gay. He's anti-gay. And then, Eddie Long died of AIDS. It's unfortunate, but, that's what happens when you're a chomo and you're raping little kids and being in the closet in Atlanta banging dudes without condoms. You're asking for, unfortunately. But like I said, 90% of these guys out here of these clowns out here who are doing this shit are gay. Alright? But they want to paint the picture that it's black guys. I mean, look, name me one niggity jiggity that's out here depriving gay people of resources. Because I can name white people. I can name white supremacist homosexuals who are in the closet, who passed anti-gay laws and voted against stuff for gays. Like the guy in Minnesota who was banging kids in the bathroom. Or banging dudes in the bathroom. Or Larry Craig from Idaho, the senator that was meeting dudes in the bathroom and then he got caught with a cop. The cop arrested him. He voted against domestic partner benefits. He voted against gay marriage. He voted against gays in the military. He voted against HIV funding during the crisis. He voted against hate crime bills for gays. He voted against housing laws to benefit gays. He voted against all that shit, but he was fucking dudes in the bathroom. Just like the dude from Minnesota. Yeah, the guy, Ed Schrock, he voted against a bunch of gay stuff. Voted against anti-AIDS bills all throughout the 90s. Anti-gay marriage, through the 80s. Super anti-gay, hardcore conservative congressman from Virginia, Ed Schrock. But then they busted him calling gay hotlines to find male prostitutes. Alright? Wasn't blacks. We weren't out here doing that shit. We weren't the ones out here denying you motherfuckers resources. We didn't deny you a goddamn thing, Chicken Andy. You name me one black guy, one niggity jiggity, that was denying you guys resources and harming your community. It doesn't exist. We talk a bunch of shit. I've talked a bunch of shit. But we are physically harming you. We are physically destroying your community. We are physically going in here and harming you and beating the shit out of training. I mean, there's some guys doing that shit. They usually got tricked. But there have been a lot of white supremacist males, pedestrian white supremacist males. They go out here and they beat the hell out of trans people. Whip them jacket dandies' asses. And I'm not some gay community advocate. I don't give a shit either way. Because if you say that you're anti-gay, you're gonna get ovened. We all know this. But the point is, the blacks are not the face and should not be considered the face of homophobia. That is a war tactic by the white supremacists to further justify harming the black community. I mean, you know, you got white-owned magazines and media outlets to this day that cover up and pretend gay celebrities like Taylor Swift are straight. Hell, look at Forbes magazine. Michael Forbes was gay as hell, and they covered it up for years until like a decade after he died. So what does that tell you? Then you had, and a lot of this stuff started in the 80s. It got really bad in the 80s, excuse me. It had been going on for years, but it got really bad in the 80s. You had Ronald Reagan, who was a homosexual. He loaded his cabinet with closeted gay members. His whole Hollywood conservative closeted clique got put into office when he got elected, along with that pedophile George H.W. Bush. Because we all remember the pedophile scandal. The video's on here. The video was on here about that big scandal that went down, and the same the credit cards that were used to purchase male prostitutes was during Carter's administration. It was during Bush's administration. It was during Reagan's administration. They were using the same government credit cards to purchase male prostitutes from the same goddamn brothel in Washington, D.C., taking night tours when the presidents were there and their staffers. Alright? But these people were anti-gay and they were all white. All of them. I ain't lying about none of this shit. But still to this day, you want to play this game like it's blacks going out here harming the gays. And then you had, what was that other jacket dandy? Terry Dolan. Terry Dolan was a super gay conservative who used to blow dudes at a gay club called the Flamingo while running the most powerful anti-organizations in America in the 80s. Voting down stuff, lobbying to vote against stuff that would have benefited the gay community, voting against some housing bills that kept them out of houses if they suspected two people were gay. It's based on suspicion. They also used the gay thing as an excuse to discriminate against blacks if they knew that they could have a lawsuit based on race. So it left a window open for racial discrimination. You had Rick Krause. He was the director of the National Institutes of Health back in the 80s during the height of the AIDS crisis that was killing a lot of white homosexual men. And this guy was a closeted homosexual who ignored the AIDS crisis and stopped research funding during the height of the epidemic. That shit caused a lot of deaths in the same way that these Uncle Tom nukes harmed the black community. So that's yet another example of how closeted gay white men harm their own people. This is white on white crime, basically. I mean, you had David Hassard, anti-gay conservative, who was molesting boys on the wrestling team for damn near 2 decades. You had Roy Cohn, who used to persecute gays in the 60s and 50s, but he had sex with men. You had Ted Haggard, anti-gay conservative, who had sex with men. And then, of course, the biggest piece of trash walking J. Edgar Hoover, who used to persecute gays and communists, along with Roy Cohn, who was gay. One of the main reasons that he was a vehement racist. He went after the blacks because he couldn't go after the mafia, because the mafia had pictures of him from clubs that he used to go to, because they used to bug the clubs that these mafia guys owned. And this guy came in there with his boyfriend, and he was prancing around. Sometimes he'd cross-dress, he's getting plowed, sucking dudes off. They're catching all of it on camera, taking pictures of that shit on the low. They got a hold of this shit, started using it against him. So he started denying the existence of the mafia. And he went gung-ho on the black community. And one of the reasons is because the mafia told him to. He was a racist. Don't get it twisted. He was a goddamn racist. And it shows in his brash and vehement policies. But one of the things is the Italians didn't like the blacks. So they went ham. They went fucking ham on blacks. FBI. And the Italians wanted the blacks gone because they hated the numbers bosses. So what they would do is they go, hey guy, you need to get rid of this guy, you need to get rid of that guy. The numbers bosses are protecting this dude, or this guy's protecting the numbers bosses. So we got to get rid of these motherfuckers. So what they would do is they'd have the FBI go in there, find fake ass reasons to kill guys like Fred Hampton, to kill guys like that black guy in Chicago, I forget his name, where they were going after him for years. And finally he just gave up, told his bodyguards to back off. The Italian mob came and gunned him down. He was dying of stomach cancer back in the 50s or 60s, so there was really nothing he could do. He was like, fuck it, the game's over, I'm dying like a man. So there was that. But a lot of that influence came from the mob, who had very, very serious anti-black and anti-gay sentiments, and they were using it against them. Because like Tariq Nasheed pointed out, a lot of those gay clubs were owned by Italians, and a lot of Italians are switch hitters. Now the thing is, none of this stuff gets talked about in the mainstream, even though it's in public record. They try to softly cover it up. Magazines don't like to talk about this kind of stuff. And if you do out some of these guys, especially if they're anti-gay, they'll call you homophobic for that, because they just want to jump in front of the bus to cover their own asses. Because in the aggregate, it harms the narrative that the blacks are the biggest threat to all these groups. They want to make it out to be the blacks are the biggest threat to the Hispanics. That's the narrative they had been pushing all through the late 90s. Oh, the blacks are beating up the Mexicans. That was the narrative in the 80s, causing all these black versus Latino brawls that didn't exist in the 80s. It didn't. I was there, even though I'm only 26. That's what was cracking off, Jack and Dandies. Now, in its proper context, anybody can see what this is. But they're always going to flip it and try to make blacks out to be the threat so that they can execute the great so what. And it's always veiled behind shit like this. That's why the point is, Jack and Dandies, to destroy their narratives. Destroy their narratives every fucking time. That's why I released this today, on the Gay Pride Parade Day. To destroy their fucking narratives, because they have an anti-black agenda. They want to start a race war, and they want to get the acceptance of everyday, regular, rank-and-file white people, so that they don't say nothing. That's the whole point of winning the hearts and minds of everybody. So when they start popping this shit about blacks are doing this and blacks are doing that, do the research, hit them with the facts, just like this, bitch.